A Burnham woman charged with animal cruelty made a brief appearance before a judge today.
Brittany McHatton sat in on the proceeding and joins us now with more.
Thank you. 40-year-old Alexis Ingraham was allowed to keep her camera off for this afternoon's virtual appearance in a Waldo County courtroom that lasted less than 90 seconds. Ingraham is charged with one count of cruelty to animals and another count of violating bail conditions. Court documents reveal back in February, Burnham Animal Control removed 4 dogs and 10 cats, all in poor health, from Ingraham's Pond Road property. The affidavit goes on to say Ingraham then reportedly removed horses from her property. 9 of the horses wound up at Peace Ridge Sanctuary in Brooks in March. That's when the nonprofit contacted animal welfare with concerns about the condition of the animals. According to an assessment by the assistant veterinarian for the state of Maine, the majority of the 9 horses were malnourished and had overgrown and cracked hooves, among other concerns. The official found one horse in particular to be in immediate need of medical care with a serious infection, trauma, and frostbite of its genitals. A viewer shared these photos with WABI, allegedly showing some of the horses in question. An agent with animal welfare applied for and was granted an arrest warrant for Ingraham on the cruelty charge in late March. Ingraham was given personal recognizance bail and ordered not to have any equine, livestock, or domestic animals. But in June, the Waldo County Sheriff's Office alleges there were multiple animals seen on the property, including these 3 horses in 100-degree heat with no shade. Deputies again arrested Ingraham and charged her with violating conditions of release. Now, Ingraham does have a criminal history. Back in 2011, she and her husband, Brett, were convicted of 6 counts of animal cruelty for the mistreatment of horses that was then their farm in Clinton. Under a plea agreement in that case, she was sentenced to 30 days in jail. The couple was ordered to pay $10,000 and were barred from owning horses for a year. Brett Ingraham is not named in this round of allegations. Alexis's next court appearance is scheduled for October.